Okay guys, here's the video on repairing this unit, and believe me, it's going to need repairs. I don't know how long it's going to last you, because this is the poorest quality thing I've ever seen. Now, to save a little time, I took out the 4 Allen screws that were holding the valve body on. For the most part, the valve body is satisfactory. It works. You don't have to worry about that part, I don't think. Alright, when you take it off, you're going to see this fiber washer sitting on top of those 2 holes. Now, you'll notice that this hole at 6 o'clock is bigger than the hole at 7. Make sure that you don't flip it over. It won't work. You got to have the bigger hole at the bottom at the 6 o'clock mark. Just take that off, put it off to the side so you got it. Now, on my original, this is an Allen cap screw, and that was sticking out 3/16 to a 1/4 inch, and that regulates your sliding piston inside there, or holds it in location. And that was totally stripped out, and that's 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches long, and that was stripped out. What I found was that a 632 is perfect. You take a 632, thread it, rethread the shaft, and then I found a hardened screw, and unfortunately I only could go about 7/8 of an inch to an inch, because that's how much threads I had on the tap. So I rethreaded that, put that on, and it held it in place. Now, pushing that plunger in the front, you might have to use a drift and a hammer just to tap it out. When you pull this cylinder out, notice that there's holes in the top that align with that square notch in the top of the valve body. It has to be there. If you take it out and you see it's cocked to one side or the other, that's why it doesn't work, because the air can't flow. So when you put it back together, make sure those holes are lined up with that top groove. You'll notice that there's 2 holes here, but nothing on the opposite side. Those holes have to be pointing at you. That's your airflow. Alright, now, what did I do with my pistons? I took that off. Oh, it stayed inside here. Alright, get that out of there. Alright, now, put that like that. This is the actuating piston that slides back and forth just that little bit. 1/4 inch maybe, not even that, 3/16. It just slides back and forth. But that is what switches the airflow from this hole to that hole to this hole. That's what switches the airflow to work your actuator. And if that screw comes loose or backs off or strips out, this slides too far forward and it can't work your airflow through those passageways. It's like the old steam engine, where with the sliding valve, pushing it to the front of the cylinder and pushing it to the back of the cylinder. It's the same principle. Now, when you pull this out, you'll have another fiber washer, no holes. Alright? Then you have a rubber washer with a groove in the back side. Groove goes in to the valve body or the plunger body. Alright? Flat side out. On the front side, you'll have another washer that's got multiple ridges in it. And I just took this apart, and guess what? This gasket rubber washer has failed. Look at that. And I've only used it not even 20 minutes, half hour, and this rubber washer has failed. So now I've got to try and figure out what I'm going to replace it with. I'll have to go rummaging at the hardware store and see if I can find something. But that sits on the face that's got that little shoulder. And you put that on there like that with the recess so it goes on over that shoulder. And these are like shock absorbers for when it slams forward and slams back. Now, this part here is the poorest quality aluminum I've seen in years. It is really bad. When I had these threads all boogered up, these were shot threads as well as this was shot. When I took it out, I chucked it in a lathe, and I was rotating it around trying to dress up these threads, and I noticed the shaft doing this. This shaft was bent. Now this is almost a 3/8 shaft. It's metric, but it's almost a 3/8 shaft, and it was bent. So what I did was I took and marked where I had it chucked to the jaw of the chuck, so I would have that in the same line. If I take it out and put it back in, I just took a black magic marker and put a little dot there and a dot on the lathe chuck, so I could put it back in the same place every time. Dial indicated it out, found the high spots, and then I took and put it on a block of wood with one of those dead blow hammers, those plastic dead blow hammers with buckshot in them, and sat there and banged it. Then I chucked it back in a lathe, dial indicated it out again, found the next high spot, put it on a wooden block, and wrapped it again. It took a while, but I got it straight. That was what was binding up in here. It would catch because it was bent. Another thing is when I went to TIG weld, as I said in the other video, when I went to TIG weld up these the threads so I could cut new ones, this whole tip just bent, just arched over like that with only 23 amps. I did 3 passes and that thing started sagging. So it was a project trying to get that back in place. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take and measure this all up, and then I'm either going to make it a steel bar. This isn't the right size, I can see that now. I can get a bigger steel bar, something like that, and machine it all out in steel. But I can't see spending all the time cutting this down. So what I might do is just cut this part out of this, bore it to a 3/8 shaft, and then press fit it on, and then silver solder it. And of course I'll take the 3/8 shaft and do all the machining here in here first, and then make this piston portion and press fit it on, and then silver solder it. I could possibly do it with aluminum, make the piston out of that, and then use 3/8 round, 3/8 aluminum round bar, and do the same thing, only I would TIG weld it bigger and then machine it down to finished size. But regardless, this is going to get replaced because it is so soft and so weak, it just won't hold up. I don't know what I'm going to do about those gaskets. I'm gonna have to see what I can find at the hardware store. Now, in here, there's two little bitty Mickey Mouse bushings, and when I pushed it out the first time, one bushing came out with the shaft because it was bent, so it stuck on it and slid right out. And when I pushed it back in to put it back together, this front bushing slid right out. So what I'm going to do when I rebuild this with a heavier 3/8 shaft is I've ordered bronze bushings with a flange. So I'll bore this hole out to a 1/2 inch, which will give me a 3/8 bore, and then I will spot face it. Now you'll notice there's a hole here. That is an air hole. That's the escape for the air. So what I'm going to do is I'll plug this hole here and I'll drill it here for several reasons. If I'm ramming sand, that exhaust is blasting right into the sand, blowing sand up in your face. So I'm going to TIG weld that up. After I get it machined out, I'll TIG weld it up, and then I will re-drill the hole here so my exhaust blast is above the unit, not blasting down into the sand. So then I'll press fit in the bronze bushing with the flange so that it's flush, and redirect the air. This is the part you're probably going to have to rework. And the rubber shock absorbers. I didn't even know this was broke until I took it apart. I just got through using it. What I had to do to get it to work this last time was, you can't tell it very much, but I took 3M has a product. It looks like an air breather. But it's like triple-aught steel wool, only it's man-made. Yeah, I don't know what it's made out of. But anyway, I spun this, chucked it in a lathe here, spun this to just take the high spots in the burrs off, and then from banging on it, I had a couple of burrs here, and I just took a little bit off. It's not polished. If I had found my crocus cloth, I would have polished it. But it was cleaned up enough. But the thing is, this has got to be straight to slide through those bushings. So you're going to have to do a little hammer banging and sanding and polishing to get that, so that when you put it in, it just falls. It's just, now there's there's no binding. That's what was stopping it. I could push it down and it would stay down. I could push it up and it'd stay up. That's how bad it was bent. So you might, if you want, I'd knock those bushings out. If you don't want to do all the machining and stuff, I would just knock them out, mic them up, and get a full length bushing. I would say it looks like it's going to be 2 inches. What have I got? Well, no, that won't work. Here. Will that fit? Yep. All right, that's 1.5 inches, 1.5175. That's 1.5 inches. That's how long that bushing is. So, if you want to just hedge your bet and improve it, personally, I would ream it out to the next size and get a thicker walled bushing. It give you a little more support and a better action than 2 of these little dinky things. But anyway, that's one of the repairs that you should do. And then seriously think about miking this up, measuring it all out, and making one out of a solid piece of aluminum or steel, and then silver solder it on, the piston on, or machining it all in one piece, whatever. If you're using this original one, make sure your rubber shock absorbers are in good shape, and you thread this to a 632. Try and find a hardened screw. If I had a 632 Allen cap screw, I would have used that, but I didn't have one. I luckily found, I think that came out of a screen door latch kit. But that is your other problem. So if that's stripped out and that plunger slides too far, that's why it doesn't work. Reassembly, like I said, I'm not going to reassemble it because I got to get me new gaskets. When like I said, this piston, those holes are facing you down, and those 2 holes go into the top section, to the top notch. If it's cocked to either side, it will not work. I hope I gave you enough information so you know how to fix this thing. It's not that complicated to take apart, and there's not that many parts. One thing I might do, considering I'm looking at this plastic, I might make this a little thicker and just ream this a little bit to fit, just to give me a little more control. And if I can make this a little thicker, I can probably go from a 632 to an 832. Just a little more strength. It's just a thought. I'll have to experiment. I hope this gives you some idea of how it is to be repaired, or needs to be repaired. I don't know how long those are going to last. I really don't. We're going to have to go in the hardware store and see what kind of rubber cushions they got, but this one didn't last a half an hour, and it's already destroyed. The back one's good. It's the front one where it was slamming into the housing. That's the one that failed. So, there you go, guys. I hope this gives you some idea. As I said, the valve body was perfect. It works. all it does is turn the air on and off so that there's nothing there. This is the headache right in here. And that's the things you have to key on to fix. For what it's worth, I hope this helps. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.